gonna say, Jeff, since Luke's the other part of your double or duel, I mean, for copyright purposes, it has to be duel. All you, Jeff.
Yeah, for me, this was the opportunity of a lifetime.
Welcome back to the Men's Adventure Fiction Podcast. This is a incredibly special episode because it's on the day after the release of the first ever Veritas Duels, and there's two of them, which is perfect for it's the double duel, I guess. But I'm here with Terrance Layhew, Jeff Pintabona, and LS Goozdich. Me and Terrance were able to be in this duel together, so I'll toss it over to Terrance, and he can toss it to Luke, and we'll see where we end up from there. You can introduce yourself, Terrance.
Hi everyone, I'm Terrance Layhew. I wrote the Midas Game and the Crime Duel. Also, I double duel dare you, LS Goozdich.
Perfect. So yeah, I'm Luke, if you don't know. But I wrote the River Job, which I was telling Terrance is supposed to be a placeholder title that ended up just being a title because I couldn't think of another title. So I wrote that book, which is a part of the double with our man Jeff Pintabona. So Jeff, take it away from here. How you doing?
Hey, I'm Jeff Pintabona, and I wrote Shootout in Sharpsburg as part of the double with Luke.
Heck yeah. So these Veritas duels are, I don't know, it's such a fun thing to do, and it's something I'm so excited for the future of, because I don't know about you, but just pairing and being able to work with another author, like working with you, Jeff, and seeing them work together, and then Terrance reading yours and Nathaniel's. It's such a fun, unique thing because it's not quite like a short story collection, but it's not just a novel. I don't know I don't know who we want to start with, but what was your experience doing this? I want to start there as far as how this was for you guys.
You can take it away, Jeff. Yeah, I was going to say, Jeff, since Luke's the other part of your double or duel, I mean, for copyright purposes, it has to be duel. All you, Jeff.
Yeah, for me, this was the opportunity of a lifetime for me because the inspiration for these doubles, I know, was the old Ace Publishing double books, which, to give a little background on that, Ace put out they were a publishing company way back in the day, and they were an extremely big one, and they put out these books where they would have, like, one side would be one story, and then you would flip the book over, and you would get a completely different story, sometimes by the same author, but usually by a different author, so you'd get two, like, sort of books in one. And each side would have, like, its own cover art. It was like a complete book. You just flipped it over. You had two complete books for the price of one. I love this format. It's highly collectible today. There's Ace fanatics that collect these things. They can be worth a lot of money. I have a ton of them, mostly Westerns, because that's my favorite, of course. So I have a ton of these. And, I was talking to the boys months ago about, we should bring back the Ace doubles. We should bring back the Ace doubles. And they were like, we've already thought of that. And things took off from there. They reached out to me and said, hey, Jeff, do you want to write like a Veritas double? Are we bringing this back? And I was like, absolutely, buddy. And that's how I got involved with the project.
Right.
Answered the call of adventure.
Absolutely. Impressively so, because you just, but both of you guys, all three of you guys, just released a book and then did this too. So impressive output from Team Veritas here. So
you too, dude.
Kudos to all of you guys for answering that call. I know. I just realized that literally all of us just released a book and then did this. It's very, it's funny, but it was definitely worth it because I'm with you, Jeff. The Ace, I only have one Ace double, and it's like a boxing Ace double that I got at like VoucherCon or something. But I love that. I love the idea of it because I'm a big film guy, and it reminds me of like the double features and kind of stuff like that back in the day. And there's something about just like, I don't know, the A side, B side stories. It's very, the pairings is what excites me. It's cool to see the compare and contrast and how the stories, like if you look at Terrance's and Nathaniel's, because we'll throw it to them, like one's set in a different time period, and like there's different versions of a crime story that are in there, and I like how that kind of plays out. And yours, Jeff, is like more of like a very like clean classic 1960s Western show, and then mine's like a Ocean's 11 or something meeting a Western. It's like it's cool to see the pairing. So Terrance, how was it coming off Thorn and getting involved in the duel for you?
It was really fun because I like crime fiction, but this I think is technically the first actual crime fiction I've written, other than the hard-boiled story that I wrote for the Veritas Noir. Like, it was fun to stretch my muscles and try something different. I've had the character of Jack Devlin sitting in the back of my mind forever, and I think eventually he has emerged from being a Neil Caffrey copycat into at least a slightly more unique confidence man character. And it was really great to have this opportunity because I love, like you said, the contrast that you can have in stories is really fun to play off of each other to a certain extent and let the reader get to enjoy that kind of interplay in the stories.
Right. I'm always interested, like, who will read which one first, and if it will make a difference which one you read first on these, because it will. I mean, they're different vibes, they're different flavors, different authors. It's interesting. I think it's cool. I know I would probably like have to read the back and decide which one I was going to read in a moment. I don't know. I wouldn't just go forward with it. I don't know. It's interesting. But Nathaniel, what about you? How was getting involved with this and pulling Sal back into business?
Dude, what's super interesting is I'd never heard of the ace doubles until you brought it up. And then, like we kind of talked about, Terrance and I actually, I guess this will be yesterday if you watched his show. We talked about how
in the chronology,
chronologically speaking, Jeff brought it up to us, and Luke had already mentioned it to me, and I was just like, I'm in, no matter, I don't care whose suggestion it is, I'm all for this. Like, this is going to be so cool. So to see it come together, I think what you were saying about the kind of how they, I don't know if mirror is the right word, but they're different stories. They have similar elements, but they're for sure vastly different tales. And I like that aspect. And I think having read your guys, it's a similar thing where it's like, okay, you're not going to get two of the same books. You are definitely getting two books for the price of one, which makes it super cool because it's with mine and Terrance's. Mine is very like, there's some seriously over the top action stuff, and Terrance's is an incredibly like well thought out strategic plan that's being enacted on you, the reader. You know, so it's cool to have the kind of back and forth of that. And then, like you said, yours is Luke is his crime like heist story on a riverboat. It's so cool. And then to have my personal favorite version of the West is the classic West, the West that never really existed from the 1960s TV. So to have you bring back that with your character Jeff is super cool, which if you want to talk about him and any plans you might have for that, I'd love to hear it. I think the people would too.
Yeah, we can start with your story. You kind of pitch in and we'll riff on yours for a bit.
Yeah, so my story follows a character. This is a character that I invented in my head I think 6 or 7 years ago. I've been carrying this man around in my head for a very long time. And he's gone through a lot of changes and iterations over the years. And now he exists. Now he's a real thing. So the character is Lance Colburn. He is a range detective. Basically, that's what he calls himself. He's basically a private detective in the Old West. Mm-hmm. It's vaguely the late 1870s, maybe early 1880s. We're never really sure, but the Civil War was vaguely 15 years ago. And he fought in the Civil War, and he fought in the brutal New Mexico campaign. Mm-hmm. And after the war, became a Pinkerton agent, and then hung out his shingle as a private detective in New Mexico, a territory he now knows very, very well. And he gets into all sorts of misadventures. And in my book, my first book with him, he gets involved in a case that is actually based on a real-life case. There was a real-life, very controversial sort of shooting of a stagecoach in a town called Wickenburg, And the identities of the killers were never quite identified. There are people that will tell you it was these Mexican bandits. There are people that will tell you it was Apaches. There are people that will tell you it was an inside job carried out by the 2 survivors of the massacre. But each of those theories has problems, and we still don't really know exactly who carried this out. And like Old West history buffs, the Wickenburg massacre is like a very hot topic. So I decided to do my own take on that. We have a stagecoach massacre. Could be Mexicans, could be Apaches, could be an inside job, could be this gunfighter that's shown up in town, and Lance Colburn needs to solve the case.
So I just want to tell you, I love the structure you gave to this because it really does feel like one of those post-World War II-esque stories where the PI returns from the war and he sets up his shingle, and you've just perfectly transposed that type of archetype into the Old West. I have often said that the only thing that changes about archetypal heroes are the hats that they wear. And the PI is like the next, wearing a fedora is the next iteration of the American cowboy. So I love that you essentially were able to merge those archetypal characters together in this story.
Yeah. Well said, Terrance. Yeah, it is like it's got noir vibes to it. And, you know, your Gunpoint and Killers from Yellow Rock, I don't know if like you would say like darker or harsher, but this is definitely a different feel and a more comfortable kind of a very enjoyable feel to this one. Was there a different approach for you in writing it, or was it just a shift in your mind? Like, how did that work going like 2 different tones like that?
Yeah, 100%. So I I've said this many times on podcast. I love the hard-boiled West, which 1950s and 60s paperbacks were full of.
Yeah.
A lot of the classic hard-boiled fiction writers wrote Westerns, and their Westerns very much read like their hard-boiled crime stuff, and I love that. But like Nathanael, I love the classic Western as well, which is a little more uplifting, maybe. The hero rides off into the sunset at the end, and, everything isn't horrible and dark and seedy. And I love Western TV shows. On the old Western TV shows, something that interested me was there was a literal arms race in the Western television landscape of the late 50s, early 60s, where every TV Western hero had to have his own, gun. And the gun had to be somehow special. One of them had, a custom shotgun. The rifleman obviously had his rifle with the screw, and he could fire it super fast. Steve McQueen had the mare's leg, which was like a cut-down rifle the size of a pistol. And everyone was doing this. And it almost reminded me of superheroes. It's like each person's special gun is almost like his superpower. And I love that idea, and I loved coming up with a character because Lance Colburn has his own custom gun, and that's very much inspired by that. So yeah, I definitely knew it's like, okay, I'm going to do something that's more like a classic TV Western. And some of those old TV Westerns could be pretty dark too. Some of them had some pretty adult subject matter actually for the time, but generally speaking, TV back then was a little bit, it wasn't exactly Philip Marlowe. Let's put it that way. So I very consciously had to restrain myself from being like, okay, you can't have people getting beaten to death and there's blood and horrors and horrible violence. And it's like, you gotta keep it a little bit classic. So I definitely had to make kind of a mindset shift there.
Right.
Which was fun.
You nailed it too. I mean,
I could for sure see the sets in my mind, which I think it just illustrates your writing so well. Of as I'm reading it, I just kept thinking damn it, it's exactly like a 60s TV show. This is crazy. How did he do this? How did he boil it down into a paperback format? So yeah, fantastic. You got I don't want to say formula because I think that reduces the work that you did because it's not formulaic, but you have the idea down perfectly. You distilled it fantastically, and I hope we see Lance Colburn over and over again, like every week. Heck, I mean, we'll see. But yeah, I don't know what you were going to say, Luke. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're totally good. This was my point. I'm afraid of cutting everybody off with the 4 people going on. What you said, this character's been with you for a while. Was there any other startups and stops or anything like that? Or was this the first time you attempted to make him in a full story?
Oh, yeah. Before I, started writing seriously, like last year essentially, and then hooked up with you guys. Yeah, I had a long history of starting and stopping and trying to get into writing and then just not sticking with it. And Lance Colburn has been put on the page in one variation or another.
Yeah.
I don't even know how many times. And it's taken a long time to like get him to this point, his kind of final stage.
How's it feel now, getting him out there? Sorry, Terrance.
No, go ahead. You asked another question.
It feels good. I'm very happy with the character. I am excited. I have a lot of ideas for what I want to do with him. Reoccurring villains and individual stories and all sorts of stuff. And yeah, trust me, I have a whole series Bible already written for the character, for the show, if you will, that he stars in. And I intend for audiences to see a lot more of him.
I 100%, as I was reading it, my brain had like the bounty law segments of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and when they were filming the Western and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood in my head. So, chef's kiss, it turned out phenomenal. I love the custom weapon. I'm curious, were ranged detectives an actual thing? Because I definitely left the book thinking this is a real thing. It can't not be real.
Yes, so it wasn't uncommon for people to identify, and they were basically just private detectives, but they called themselves range detectives. I'm playing a little bit loose with the terminology because usually someone that identified specifically as a range detective was somebody whose job it was to investigate like cattle rustling specifically. They were out on like cowboy ranges investigating those types of crimes, whereas, Colburn's not doing that, but whatever. So I'm playing a little loose with the terminology, but yeah, range detectives were a real thing. Tom Horn called himself a range detective, although he was really a range assassin. He really killed people for money, but he called himself a range detective.
Is that the one with the Steve McQueen movie, that Tom Horn?
Yes.
My dad just told me to watch that like yesterday, so I'll have to check that out.
You should watch it. That's another man. You talk to the Old West buffs, controversial subject because Tom Horn was hanged for supposedly shooting a 14-year-old boy, and did he actually shoot him? Did he not? That is another hot topic amongst Old West history buffs. Some people will swear he had to have shot him. Other people will tell you there's no way, it's impossible. That could be another subject for a Colburn adventure. Who knows?
Interesting.
I love that you played with the history of the West here because it is so just full of opportunities like this for narrative and for adventure because there's so much that was unsolved or poorly documented, etc., etc. So, like, Jeff, genuine question here. I've read some of Max Allan Collins has a series called Nate Heller. Whole premise is he basically takes these actual crimes in history and he inserts Nate Heller into the fabric of the mystery. How much is that something that you may or may not use just because there is so much in the Wild West that you can play with without having to fudge history at all?
Yeah, the Heller books are great. Just real quick, I've read The Big Bundle and Too Many Bullets, both great.
Hard Case Crime for the win.
Yep, Hard Case Crime is great. So yeah, I mean, obviously, my current book, Shootout in Sharpsburg, is based on the Wickenburg Massacre, but it's the Sharpsburg Massacre here. Mm-hmm. So I am interested in taking real-life historical events and stuff, but I don't think I'm going to be inclined to have Lance Colburn, run into Wyatt Earp or Dallas Studenmeyer or any of those guys in particular. Mm-hmm. Part of that being because one of the things I like about being able to kind of use stuff that's based on real history is I can change it and do whatever I want.
Yes.
Like in Shootout in Sharpsburg, the Sharpsburg Massacre gets solved, right? We'll never know who committed the Wickenburg Massacre, and people will argue and get mad at each other about it till the end of time. I get to have actual resolutions to my mysteries because, I fictionalize it a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Which is another very sort of traditional thing in the Western. If you look at a lot of old Western fiction, there's tons of stories that are based very clearly on real events, but they change it a little bit and then kind of do whatever they want with it. Like, there are so many Western stories, movies, books, comics, everything, that star like a gunfighter whose name is Ringo, who's not the historical Johnny Ringo exactly, but he usually kind of is. Like, a lot of times his backstory is almost identical, but then they just do whatever they want with him. One of my favorite Western books and movies is called Warlock, which is closely based on the OK Corral shootout with Wyatt Earp and the Cowboy Gang. But, they change all the names and they change the places and, it goes in a very different direction than the real history. And that's kind of the fun thing is you take the real history and then you change it a little bit and then you decide, what do I want to do with this? And you don't have to be loyal to the real history. If I want to have Lance Colburn investigate a gunfighter who's accused of killing a 14-year-old boy, I can solve that mystery. Did the guy do it or not? Whereas I don't think we'll ever know whether Tom Horn killed Willie Nickel or not.
Can I just say that is one of the most American things ever? Because that's what our frontier myths are. That's where we get the larger-than-life version of Davy Crockett, who is an actual real person who did lots of actual real things. But oh my goodness, in his own lifetime, he might have been one of the first pulp heroes.
Yeah, I mean, dude, the dime novels, right? They were literally writing about these guys while they were still alive, right? If I'm not mistaken, some of these guys, like Billy the Kid and stuff, they would have these novels coming out while they were still actively criminals and doing stuff. It's very interesting to see. You could get them on the dime store, paperbacks doing really cool heroic stories, and then they're out there doing their crimes and Pinkertons and stuff are looking for them. It's a weird thing that was happening. Could you imagine like stories about criminals just coming out right now as they're happening? It'd be weird. I don't get it.
I mean, you could literally buy the dime store book and then get killed by Billy the Kid later the day.
Yeah, it's just walking out, reading his story. Just gets
like your last words are like, "The book was better." And then
you sign it?
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, that's a crazy point. I don't know if I ever thought about that before, but that's wild stuff, dude. Yeah, I think that's one of the really cool things you bring to your writing, Jeff, that I never will do because I never think far enough ahead to actually like plan out with history. I mean, even with like In the Heart of Alexandria, I was doing all this history and I was like, well, the French Foreign Legion was never in Afghanistan until like the 1990s. So history be damned, I'm writing this anyways. That's always more my take on it. Whereas I feel like you do such a good job of making your stories actually like there's always a point in time where you kind of like you're going to get to the back of the book and see that it was based on real circumstances, or something like that. So kudos to you for knowing history so well and being able to weave it through the fabric of every story you tell. It's really impressive stuff.
Well, Nathaniel, you're selling yourself a little short there because, the French government never admitted that the Foreign Legion was against. You don't know. You don't know what they were doing back then. You weren't there.
Maybe I did so much research. I do know. And In the Heart of Alexandria is completely historical fact. Well, I'll never admit either way, though. But thanks, Jeff. I appreciate the save.
It's a good point. Even like in the macro, of course, very historically grounded, but even like in the micro, things that just feel realistic, your understanding of weapons, your understanding of just like the layout of it being in that time period, it makes it feel so much more lived in and so much more real. Kind of that Larry McMurtry aspect of it, where it feels like this is like genuinely looks like I'm looking in the lives of these people rather than just I made this up. You know what I mean? So kudos to you again for just the realism you throw into all your stories, right? Because you could say this not just about this one, but even the last one I really loved in Gunpoint when he goes to like blacksmith and just like some of the stuff you're mentioning that I would never think to write about guns, having these problems and malfunctions, but they absolutely would and go like it was great. You just add little pieces that really enhance the reader's experience to feel like it's real and you're involved in it.
Thank you.
I have to ask Jeff real quick, since Luke was talking about the guns. How were there any guns like the one you described for Coburn in the actual Old West? Because it sounds awesome, and I want to believe that someone actually had this.
Yes, so kind of. So when I sat down and I said, "Oh, you know what? I want to do like my character has to have his own unique weapon. We're doing full late 50s arms race between all the TV Western characters. He's got to have something unique. He's got to have something cool." And then I sat down and realized I had to figure out, well, what weapon is he going to have? And I was like, fuck, I don't know. And I sat around for a while saying, fuck, I don't know. And then I remembered, so yes, there were revolver rifles essentially, which were not buntline specials. If anyone doesn't know, a buntline special is like a single action revolver that is a very long barrel. Wyatt Earp was reputed to have had one, although there's no actual historical evidence that he did. But it's cool, so, people want to believe it. And my character, he doesn't have that. He has like an actual like rifle, and it's a revolver rifle. It has a stock, it has ladder sights, like on a Henry rifle that he can adjust for long distance shooting, and it loads 6 rounds, and it's basically a Smith & Wesson Schofield, but a rifle with a stock, and yeah. How did I come up with that? So Colt made a revolver rifle, I think during the Civil War, and it was black powder, and it had a lot of problems. It was kind of a disaster, actually. It was
when
very
we said the words black powder,
fires.
I was like, oh.
Yeah. Colt made one. Theirs was very prone to chain fires, which is like, it's like when all the cylinders catch fire at the same time, and then the gun blows up in your hands, basically. That happened a lot. It also vented gas out the side and could maybe kind of burn your hand while you were shooting it, so that was kind of a problem. It had a lot of issues, and it did not.
I gotta pick one of these up.
Very long. Yeah. So, but I thought, what if you had one of those, but it worked? What if it was cool?
Right.
And I thought, what if it loaded cartridges? And then what if Smith & Wesson, like their Schofield design, which is top break, is so much faster to load and unload than a Colt single-action Army, which has a loading gate on the side that you got to slowly load and unload. I was like, what if you had that? And I did try looking just in case, but I did not find any evidence that Smith & Wesson, or anyone else for that matter, ever made anything like this. I think in the Old West, revolver rifles pretty much died out after Colt's bad attempt. Lance Corbin has one, and it works, and it's awesome.
Yes.
It is awesome.
Yeah, you don't want to be the guy who gets their arms blown off and is like, we're not doing that one again. I don't know.
Yeah. Man, it's too cool.
I will say, one thing I also did very consciously dual writing is I tried to come up with situations where he has to use that rifle, and he doesn't really quick draw if you pay attention. I think he draws his pistol a couple times. He barely uses it at all, and it's like it's all about the custom gun.
You did a good job doing that.
Heck yeah, dude.
Which I guess we should jump over to the other Western dude and the river job. So I don't know if you want to pitch it for us there, Luke. Let the people know.
Yeah, so from like a writing standpoint, I wanted to use it as an opportunity to try something I didn't ever do before, which is have a big cast of characters, because I'm always the one character guy. And so there's a bunch of different guys in this, because you have 2 crews where you're following. One is the guys on the riverboat, and they're like a skeleton crew. They're not a big operation, but they're just 3 guys, a captain and 2 guys. One's a gunman and one's kind of like the mechanic, and they are picking up a shipment of money for their gambling, and with it comes one of the mafia guys who's a part of the syndicate to watch over the cash and make sure everything goes well. And then on the other side, you get this kind of makeshift family situation, which is the criminal operation side of things. They are heisters and such, and they're planning to hit that riverboat with that syndicate money. But they don't necessarily know that it's syndicate money. So as you get into it and you see it unfold, you'll see what happens. But you have 2 crews, a riverboat, and guys who want to steal the money off of that riverboat. And that's kind of the overhead pitch of it.
I adore heists. And so I enjoyed the build up, because it's a question of, can they do it? That's always the way that a heist should work, is you have a rough idea of the plan for the characters going in, and then start to watch the plan fall apart. And you did a great job of layering in enough. As things go wrong, they improvise, and it's a fun story. You did a great job.
Thank you. Yeah, I think if this wasn't a part of the double and didn't have the time frame it was to come out, it would have went differently. But I knew this was going to be like a double feature, right? So I wanted this to be kind of a shorter, punchier version. So the heist like you said, it is kind of all about what can go wrong and how things can go wrong and where we can pivot, rather than like the Danny Ocean, like that's his name, right? Danny Ocean, like a masterful.
Yes.
This came off without a hitch. This was sweet. It's more so like, whoa, that went wrong, and then this went wrong, and I didn't know that was there. And so it is just like fall apart the heist, you know?
Can I ask one more question right off of the bat with that? What did outlining, because I think you generally follow like a beat sheet. How detailed was your outline for this to make sure that you hit the pieces, or did you let the story kind of unroll as you were writing it?
So I had a beat sheet, I think, for like the whole thing, but like halfway through the writing, or a quarter of the way through, what you guys read as kind of the turn towards the latter half of the story, I didn't ever have that outlined. It just kind of like occurred to me. I think I told Nathanael, I was like, I think I came up with something that kind of changes the whole trajectory of the end and how I'm going to go about that. So it was outlined, but then just I think that's why you shouldn't be so married to your outline, is like having the willingness to pivot and get away from it, because that's what made when everybody reads it kind of this twist, I guess you could call it, or something that happens towards the end that makes things just go a totally different direction than you thought it was. But yeah, I did try to outline it, and what I majorly had to do was do the characters' names and little descriptions next to it, because I've never had that many characters, and I still have a hard time remembering like the characters. I can name them off in my head now, but it's like as I was writing it, I was like, okay, what is everybody's name? What they have first, last names? I don't know if you guys have this problem. Sometimes I'm like, all right, I've referred to this guy as his first name, but I've also referred to him as last name. I should pick one. I can't just call him his full name the whole time. This is weird. So I kind of struggle with that. I don't know. I'm not very good at that. And so this was getting messy for me when I was having first name, last name, this, that guy. I was just like, oof, there's a lot of people. So it was a exercise for me to add characters, and I'm trying to get better at that and weaving more characters into a story.
I think one element I really loved about. Go ahead, Nathanael.
Go ahead, Jeff. No, you got it.
Okay. One element I really loved about it is, so the main characters, don't want to spoil it or anything, but I will just say the idea of found family, the idea of people coming together who may not be related by blood but are kind of a family. Speaking of Western history, that was a real thing that happened in the Old West a lot. You had disparate groups of people coming together, forming communities, not bound by blood or maybe even culture or even language, but they came together. I really appreciated how you did that in your book, and I thought it made the characters very sympathetic. Right off the bat, you're very sympathetic, and you want them to win. You're rooting for them. At least I was. I was rooting for them to win. And then they come up against, the syndicate and their guys, and they're vicious villains. So, and you want them to win really badly. So I think you did a great job just setting up kind of the heroes and villains. Which, by the way, although, Terrance, maybe yours is the Irish mob. I think my book is the only one here that doesn't involve the mafia or the mob in some way.
That is probably accurate. Oh my goodness, I didn't realize that.
Didn't realize that either.
I have to rewrite mine. So now the mafia was behind the shootout in Sharpsburg.
You just have to retcon it in the next one, but there was some sort of mob involvement that he figures out about, and that's a through line for the whole series.
It was actually the mafia. It was Bartolini's brother.
To jump off of that whole idea, I thought you did a great job of you made every character interesting, and also, like, even if they were kind of terrible, like when you're first introduced to the syndicate guy, you're kind of like, oh man, what's about to happen here? Like, is this guy my new favorite character? And then he slowly changes and shifts, and you're like, I don't know about this guy anymore, So I thought that you did a great job of giving us characters that we were like, you start off thinking one way, and then as the story progresses, you're like, oh, this is a strange turn. I don't know how to feel about this anymore. But you did that for almost every character, I felt. And I thought that was expertly done, especially with perfect for this sort of story where it is high stakes. The plot is turning like the wheels of the riverboat. It was fantastic. So I really enjoyed that, to have the big cast of characters. To your point, though, I don't think I can name a single one of them because I'm so bad at names.
So many.
I don't know. Well, I think one guy's name was Solomon, right? That's the only thing that I can.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
So Micah, Solomon, and was there an Ezra? I was just immediately like, these all like Ezekiel. Thank you. I was like, we've got like this like little. I know that these books of the Bible are in these spots, and that's where my brain went.
Yeah, it's funny. And there's like the little conversation about their Bible names, and when you have Vance kind of riffing off the one guy's name, but the character thing, dude, the thing that I want to steal for myself in the future that I thought worked for when you introduce to the syndicate guy and you're like, oh, this guy seems kind of cool, is you meet him and he's blasted, dude. He's so drunk. And so he's a totally different guy when he's hammered and having fun at the bar and he's like, I need more alcohol. But then when he's sobered up and he's in the job, you're like, oh, this guy actually sucks. I don't like this guy. He's kind of a jerk. So I kind of want to play on that more because, I mean, it's so true. People sometimes turn into different people when they drink, for good or bad. You know, some people are happy drunks, some people are angry drunks. But like this guy was, because I'm with you, when that first scene, when people read it, he's like just trying to get another drink and he's been cut off and he's just kind of being funny about it. But once you get past that scene, you're like, oh, maybe he's not as funny as I thought he was. And he is kind of a horrible person.
Somebody give him a drink, quick.
Right. That would have saved everything.
Yeah, if he hadn't got cut off, totally different book. Yeah, fantastic.
I actually kind of now want to see a version of a story where the hero is like, it's a diehard situation and the hero is drunk off his ass and needs to like, he's like, oh no, I need to like figure out how to fix this, and he's just hammered the entire time. I did need to double check when you introduced the idea of the Sicilian syndicate in the story. I was like, wait a minute, did the mafia exist in the Old West? And at least according to a quick Google search, I was like, wow, I didn't realize that it's that old. Like, I knew it was that old in Sicily, but I didn't realize that it had been in the United States that long.
I think that's why I had to call it the syndicate, right? I think it would have been wrong to call it like the mafia at that point. When I was looking into it and trying to, like you said, do Google and make sure this was not too far-fetched, because I'm more so on Nathanael's side, where if it's somewhat true, I'll be like, yeah, we're just going to make it happen. But it wasn't so far-fetched because it seems like there was organizations and syndicates that were doing things. Organized crime was happening. It just wasn't the mafia as we know it yet, kind of thing. And so, yeah, plan on that, which is where the character, I think I still call him Vance, but I ended up changing his name because that wasn't an Italian name, and I was like, why did I give him that name? So I had to change it. I still call him that, but it's Bartolini now. But I had to switch his name, so I had to do a Command F situation for that character after I realized, oh wait, he's supposed to be in this family, and then I didn't give him an Italian name. So that's a fun part of the writing process for me.
Command F is one of the most essential hacks in writer's keyboard.
Yep. Which is also a good jumping off point to bring up, Luke, the villains of your book. So I love the heroes, and here's the thing. I hated Bartolini, so hated him, wanted him to die. He's a bad guy.
Yeah.
He's an asshole.
Yeah.
But let me tell you something. The real interesting villain to me is Boone. Again, not going to get into any spoilers for your book, but I will just say, so much of the book, you're kind of just hanging out with Boone. He's kind of a chill guy, actually, and I was kind of like, all right. And then at the end, when Boone needs to turn it on, he turns it on, and it's like, damn, this guy is badass, and he is like a real threat to our heroes, and great character. I didn't see it coming how what a tough guy Boone kind of really was at the end, because he's such a chill dude for most of the story, and he's talking and hanging out with the other guys, and it's like, all right. It kind of reminded me a little bit of almost like Pulp Fiction. You know, Pulp Fiction, like the two hitmen, you spend so much time with them just kind of dicking around and making jokes and talking, and then they get into the shootout and like they kill all those guys, and it's like, damn, these guys are like actually serious guys when they need to be. Kind of reminded me of that. So I love Boone. I hated Bartolini. I love Boone.
Wait, to that point, Luke, the river job needs to be optioned by Quentin Tarantino right now, because oh my goodness, there is a Hateful Eight version film of this.
That'd be so cool. I appreciate it. That's a super high honor compliment right there. Thank you. Boone is I think the thing that made it better and the benefit was that original outline, where for a lot of the story, I had a love for Boone, and I was like, I think this guy could be an awesome hero. Maybe I'll continue with him. And then it had to be like this kill your darlings moment where I was like, he's not that. Like, he is not that. So I can't just be like, oh, I want him to be this way. And since all of that was like built into him, I think it worked better. But I had to make that decision to be like, yeah, he is not good. So we had to go there. And so I'm glad that worked out and made him. I'm with you. He was probably my favorite character. I really liked Micah on the other side as well. But like as far as on the riverboat, I was into Boone's kind of situation because I'm with you. I think if things go his way, he probably is like a very nice, chill guy. He kind of like he has like a comment about the war and slavery and things like that where you're like, I mean, he just seems like a curious kind of like good-natured or neutral-natured guy. But then you realize that like, okay, money involved. He's not the same.
Well, okay, so I've been talking about I'm still working on the article fleshing it out, but the idea of D&D, you have lawful good, lawful neutral, you have lawful evil. And I think that there's like a neutral that he probably falls into where, yeah, normally he's a chill guy who has no issues. And then all of a sudden, but when the cash is on the line, you go into the mode.
Yeah.
It's not personal, it's business.
Really? Yeah, he's got to be the definition of that guy, right? Like, because it's very like military mindset for him too. Like Jeff said, like turning it on. Once it was like, okay, here's the operation, here's the objective. I really don't care what's in the way or what kind of like loyalties are there. Like there is just, we're gonna do what we have to do here, and makes him a scary kind of person to go up against. You know.
Fantastic stuff.
But thank you guys
excited
for the praise on that story.
Yeah, I'm excited for people to get to read it.
How do we pivot to you guys? Who should we start with?
Can I just say, I think a perfect segue from talking about someone who is calculated, who has, it's not personal, it's just business. And when family loyalty comes on the line here, Nathaniel Salvatore Cotolino is back.
Yeah,
and oh my goodness, everything that we were promised in The Cowboy and the Criminal, which may be the best story in The Fighting Heart of Man, short of Change of Heart. We brought him back. What was it like revisiting Sal? Because is this the third, fourth story with him?
Yeah, it's something like that. I think he was in two short stories in the Timber and Smoke magazine. And so this was the first time that I was spending a long time with him. And I think the first maybe 5,000 words, I kept thinking that, gosh, I should be writing this in first person, and I should be writing a Nate Colt story. And I just couldn't get through. I was having a really hard time writing it. And then I started to realize that, well, I can't write it in first person because it would just become a Nate Colt story. So I need to commit to the third person. And I do really like third person. The Ponga Jim books are written in that. And for most of my writing time, when I never actually finished anything, I exclusively wrote third person. So I really enjoyed that and staying in there. So to kind of bring that element in with slight references to Ponga Jim, because he's such a great character, also a shoulder holster wearing guy. That was kind of the jumping off point. And then I wanted to inject some of that like personality that Shel Scott has. And then to kind of like take it and make it its own, I really had to start thinking like, when I write Nate Colt, I think, what would I do if I was a badass guy who's not afraid of being a criminal too much that I don't like respect the rules perfectly, because that's really what Nate Colt does. But his base instincts are usually what I would do in a situation if it called for what he has to do, or what I would like to think I'd do. Sal is not that way at all. He is, what is the thing that benefits me the most, and I don't care who I hurt to do it. And so that shift was kind of what happened, which is, I'm interested to see what people think of the story, because Sal is not really a good guy. I don't even know if he's a neutral guy. I think he's an enforcer for the mafia. So he's already just like right off the rip, not a good dude. But there's for sure some sort of greater evil that he's always willing to go up against. He has some version of a code. I'm not sure what it is yet, but you'll read the book and you can decide. But yeah, it was fun. I wanted to make kind of a mafia James Bond sort of character instead of doing kind of your classic mafia fare. So yeah, I hope people will enjoy it. I think they will.
What I really enjoy about this and all of your work is that a lot of the time it feels like what you read now can be inspired by what came before and kind of feel like, oh, it is honoring what had come before. When I read yours, it is one of the only times where I feel like this did come from 1960. Like this is actually written in that time, and somehow it got transported here because the way you write it, there's no modern shaving of the edges. Like it is just the actual version that you would have gotten from that era. So that's something I've always really admired and appreciated about your work, is because it is plopped right in from the era you're inspired by. It's not diluted.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, and talking about like James Bond, it's like if you read the James Bond books, which are really very different than the films make him a much more charming person. Mm-hmm. In the books, James Bond is not necessarily a charming guy. He's actually a very, very selfish guy. But again, the evil that he's fighting is so much worse than him and what he represents that it's easy to root for Bond. I think it's the same thing with Sal Coltolino. I was telling the boys while you were out there for a sec, it's like, he's being set up by these bad guys, and it's like, you don't have any problem rooting for him, and, he's a bad guy, but the people he's dealing with are so much worse than him. It's like you're on his side immediately, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks. Yeah.
I think that, Nathanael, you have written some of the best action sequences of your literary career so far in international enforcement. There were 2 or 3 times I just went, wow. And I even texted you specifically at one moment and went, this could be an amazing graphic novel. I can see the panel sequences happening so well. I want to see that in comic book form.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I don't remember the context because usually I'm not writing in the living room with everybody running around, but I was for some reason writing there's a knife duel that happens aboard a ship in tuxedos, and I was in the middle of writing that, and my wife's like, all right, we got to go do something. I was like, hold on a minute, this is crucial. I got to figure out what's happening next. So I was just trying to figure out the story because that was kind of the way, and this could be a fun conversation to kind of dive into is I'm interested to hear your guys' thoughts on what separates kind of an adventure story and an action story and where the blend is and the crossover is, because a lot of what I write is super action heavy, but I feel like, and this is kind of my thoughts on it, the aesthetic, the vibes, the visuals that are presented is what changes it from something like John Wick to something more like, Mission Impossible or Indiana Jones or something like that. But I really don't know when the cutoff is of because I think we have 3 camps. There's something like John Wick, which is just action. There's something like Indiana Jones, which is action and adventure. And then there's something kind of more like National Treasure, which is mostly just adventure. And I don't know. It's such an interesting thing to talk about, but I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on it.
You guys are the geniuses of the genre. I'm going to sit back and listen.
Jeff, please go first.
I was going to say I might jump in at that point and say something I was thinking about earlier today while browsing Barnes & Noble, which is that, man, all these genre distinctions are made up by publishers to figure out how to categorize books. Because Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark, people hold it up as adventure, right? And even the poster says the return of the great adventure. And it's sort of sign-checking all the classic adventure films. But Indiana Jones is, one of the best action movies of all time. Raiders of the Lost Ark is. And you mentioned Mission Impossible. I actually was going to mention Mission Impossible very specifically and say that your book reminded me very strongly of that, where it's like the plot is bringing you from set piece to set piece. Each set piece feels distinct. And the good thing about it is the hero has to figure out a different way out of that set piece every time. It's never repetitive. He's never in the same situation twice, which helps him feel smart. Not just strong, but he has to be intelligent to get out of each situation, which is very much like Ethan Hunt. And Mission Impossible, are those action movies or those adventure movies? I mean, they're both. And I'm someone that's very open to saying things can be multiple things,
Right.
and I definitely think that yours falls into action and adventure, both.
I think that, to Jeff's point, genres are made up to help us understand story. Everything includes a bit of something. Adventure is a large, broad category. Adventure is the big category. I think that we try to narrow adventure into being high adventure, which is very specifically what you think of as Indiana Jones, just in general. Mm-hmm. And I know you guys all know this, but I'm speaking more to the audience at this point. Whereas adventure, by definition, is what happens next. It is the thing that is risk. It is the chance of the next encounter. That is what adventure is, which means all of these topics very broadly move under adventure. I think the delineation becomes, what's the point of the story? What is the major arc upon which the entire narrative hangs upon? In the case of Indiana Jones, it's finding a MacGuffin. It's getting the treasure. It's finding the artifact. In the case of John Wick, the point of it is to get from point A to point B, but the actual point of the movie is the action. The actual point of the movie is the set pieces. In the case of Mission Impossible, the point is the job. It's to get the thing and overcome whatever obstacles it takes to get there. But the way they do it is what distinguishes it from, say, John Wick, where the way he does it is through mind-numbingly delicious action. In Mission Impossible, it's through clever and articulate plans, strategies, and flim-flams and rubber masks. Like, that's, I think, when we define a story, it should be based on character, on actions, like what they do to overcome the plot, and what their task is. Those three things really define which category or genre it should sit in. And that's my very long, complicated answer to a very short question.
That's exactly what we need, dude. That's absolutely perfect. And I think you're right. The genre stuff, as much as it's made up, it is. I've always thought of it as like there's promises being built to the audience who's about to buy that. That's really like the marketing on our part has to be like, what kind of promises are we making to them that they want to see? And with the action adventure thing, of course, there is going to be those spillovers and this and that. But I really like what you said there, Terrance, about like what is the main point or driver there. And I think that's where, Nathanael, you and I had a conversation the other day of like, I wish I had I'll speak for myself. Like, I wish I had a greater foe for Noah in some of these Noah Redford stories. Like, but then realizing the first one was a MacGuffin story, and the second one was kind of like searching for meaning and identity story. So neither one would really lend itself to action story for him to have a foe, and it's like just the point of him having this really good rival, because that's a different story, that's a different point that we're going after. So once there's that story that is the action version of Noah Redford with that, you can have I think I'll find better success putting because I thought Jonah was going to be that, and then I was like, that would just take away from the story if I keep just building. I'm more focused on what Noah is finding in himself than what he has to fight in this guy. So I really like that. It's nice work, good stuff, and Jeff as well. I learned a lot right there.
Quick question: have any of you guys heard of John Truby?
Yes, yeah, he's like screenwriting stuff.
So he wrote The Anatomy of Story. He wrote a book more recently, within the last 5 years, called The Anatomy of Genre. And I think that is by far like a masterclass on how to examine stories and figure out how to construct things around the promise. Because he even points out that essentially genre fits within like a hierarchy of needs, where the more base need is based on things that are like trying to survive. That's like the lowest base need, and then the highest genre is the detective story because it's the discovery of the truth. So highly recommend it. Any of the writers out there listening, as well as us, great book.
I'll have to check that out, because I did like his other one that he did. Would you say was The Anatomy of Story? Was that the one that I read? Yeah, I like that one. I still have it somewhere. I like that.
Was that the one that I read? He asks. That
well,
was too funny.
My bad. I didn't realize you wrote two, but that's really cool. Because I remember him, just like you said, it's just like a masterclass on that stuff. The way, even if you're not looking for writing advice, I found it so interesting as just like a film fan and stuff like that, and him going deep on those stories. I'm like, it's exactly the kind of stuff I love talking about and hearing about. So I found it just like such a fascinating read. And hopefully it does rub off and get into the writing advice too, and like you pick up some of that stuff. But I found it super compelling just as a read.
Nathaniel, I have to ask. So, international enforcement. One of the things you did is you globetrot, because this is the default Nathanael Hummel need is for characters to be moving, because he goes on. It's not called a cruise liner, but essentially it's the ship that takes him from point A to point B. Did you do any research around those ships and that time period?
For the sake of image, I'm going to say, yeah, I spent tons of time looking into that. I know so much about that. What I did look up was, what is the maximum speed that you could get across the ocean in 1919? And it was somewhere around 5 days. And then that made me realize that you have to, I didn't want to skip right over to the other side. So I had to find a day and a half to lose, so I didn't have to write 5 whole days of then he went to sleep. But I think there's so many things that you read or you watch that inform stuff like that. Like I didn't look up perfect blueprints of a ship, but having read all of the Ponga Jim books 50 times each, Louis L'Amour was the guy who went on those ships. There's nothing cooler than that. And actually, a quick aside, I reached out to Beau L'Amour when I was writing Crime is My Caper to ask him if he had an idea where there was a big enough port, a deep water port for ocean liners to arrive that was near a small town. And he sent me excerpts from the books Louis used to write his books, which was the coolest thing ever. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, the same research Louis used, I used for Crime is My Caper, which is probably a peak moment in my storytelling career. But with all of that to say, that I try never to get so specific about anything, because at that point I need to do my full due diligence and really dig into what that looks like. Which I think, I don't even know if I say whether or not he has any sort of sink in his stateroom on the boat, because I did not know if they did have that back then. I think it was probably communal stuff. There was maybe a pitcher of water in some sort of basin. That's probably what it was in the 1919s, which to that point, there was really no, the flying was so not advanced. I remember Luke talking to me when he was first writing Fire in the Tall Grass, and he was talking about the planes just shedding their wings. I was like, man, this is crazy. Yes. And the infrastructure after World War I was all messed up too. So it wasn't like he could get to Spain and hop a train and go over to Austria. It was just, he has to hodgepodge together this adventure. So it was very challenging to write for that purpose. But I really enjoyed it, and it was a journey for me as it was for Sal. And I mean, the stuff that happened because of that, I'm super excited for people to read this. This one's probably the most connected to everything else. I think there's connections to each stuff that each of you guys have written throughout, which we'll talk about. We'll do a spoiler episode in a year or so and unpack all that. But that was probably one of my favorite things.
You mentioned the planes. I think that is my favorite action sequence maybe that you've ever written. That was so good. There's a scene when you guys get to it on a plane, you'll know what I'm talking about. I thought it was just peak action cinema. It was so cool. I loved it. There is no question. I just wanted to tell you you're amazing.
Yeah, I want to say I agree. The plane sequence was great. And Nathaniel, you may or may not know this, but I've been sort of bullying Terrance for a year and a half now about his Mitch Mayhew books and how Mitch Mayhew is a pilot. And I keep saying, I want to see him getting into gunfights in the sky and stuff. And I want to see dogfights and stuff. And it keeps not happening. And I keep giving him a tough time about it. So, you delivered.
Thank you.
I'm going to let you know that Mitch Mayhew 3 is in the process of being written. And there is a dogfight on the outline. It will come.
Let's go.
And
I'm going to tell everyone, Terrance, that that's because of me. I'm the reason the third book has this.
Yes.
My
Put it in the
relentless,
acknowledgement at the
being
back. Thank you, Jeff, for telling me that Mitch needed a dog bite.
So good.
Well,
I
it's
don't know
super
if it's the same reason,
exciting
Terrance, but
stuff.
go ahead.
I mean, it's just so cool
got it.
to have people blasting at each other in the air, dude. There's nothing cooler than that. So I'm super excited for that. But yeah, Luke, I want to hear what you were going to say.
I was just going to say, I don't know if it's the same reason for Terrance, but I'm always fearful of putting Noah back in the sky because I know I had to go back in the research chair and I had to really do. I feel like I will mess things up. I feel like it is kind of a difficulty for me, so I avoid putting him back in the cockpit a lot.
I don't mind doing the research on planes just because I find it interesting enough, and if I just write enough about the situation, I can get away with being less detailed about the specifics.
You sure can.
That's my attitude so far. I've read 3 books on air races that took place roughly around the same 3-year time span, and so I think that I've got my research at this point for Mitch 3.
That's awesome. Yeah, I never doubt your abilities to do that. I doubt
thank you.
my abilities to do that. I'm afraid that because the reason, if anyone read my first book, the reason that a character is eliminated in the middle of the story is because I couldn't think of how he wouldn't. And so I'm afraid that I'm going to put Noah in the sky and be like, well, he would definitely have just died there. And then he just explodes and it's like, sorry, I have such a hard time getting myself to not put him in a position where I wouldn't be able to write myself out of it. So that is just a me problem.
On us. Just main characters dying left and right.
Yeah. Yeah. And they'll be like, I thought he existed after World War One. Be like, yeah, I don't know. Multiple timelines. I don't know.
It's Noah's brother, also named Noah Redford.
He took his brother's name to honor his legacy.
Exactly. We're gonna have to do some shenanigans like that because I'm gonna accidentally write myself into a corner where he's been shot down too much, and it's like, wow, sorry. Because dogfights are intense, dude. I don't know. Mm-hmm. It's like that is not. I don't know how everybody didn't die. It is crazy the stuff they were doing, and the lifespan of a pilot being so short. It's like, oof, I'm afraid to put him up there because I don't know how to realistically get him back down.
Well, to that point, there's
not to make this about me.
If there's 3 pilots at least in the Veritas world who fought in World War One, there's whatever his first name is, Devereaux from Odyssey of Fire. There's Mitch. And there's Noah, and all 3 of those bastards survived. So that means all the other guys are dead. Yeah. If we just go through them statistics, there's no other World War One pilots still alive. So Noah did make it. So we can just confirm that because everybody else didn't make it. But yeah, dude.
According to Men's Adventure Wiki, Noah Redford survived World War II. You cannot defy it.
It's true. It's true.
I think it is just so peak that they were like, these planes can barely hold a man, but we gotta make room for a gun somehow. Like, get them a gun.
It's the American way.
It really is. Yeah, I was super interested in that, and kudos to you guys for knowing this stuff before, but I didn't realize how limited flights were back then, like how difficult it was just to even do anything flying. And that was kind of, I mean, you guys will read it when I talk about night flying. There's stuff there where it's like very hard to understand the timeline of events. Like, did somebody have a flashlight as he was like holding the yoke and he was like, oh, it looks kind of clear down there. I'm going in, or was it like, let's just get some bonfires going and they'll be at the end of the runway and hopefully he makes it. Like, who knows? So it was cool kind of taking a character and giving him the opportunity to be like the pioneer of air travel in Europe, which once again is another kind of work around history, because I really don't know. It seems like it was just kind of unclear what the actual truth is if you look through the history books, because I spent a lot of time doing that.
From what I've read, night flying really started becoming more significant towards the mid to late 20s, because again, they didn't even use radios until then. Like, just
crazy.
It's amazing people survived.
That's what I mean. Insane. And I know we can't get into it, but after that set piece, you have, and again, one of my very favorite things you've ever written, because you're putting them in like a climbing scenario. I'm going to be vague, but like I love that, especially coming from you. I know you're someone who does climb and stuff like that, so it's written well and intense. I have a fear of heights.
Thanks, man.
It's awesome and intense for me. So it was. I really like the setting and the way we can't get into it, but like the way the finale plays out is so cool. So again, this is, to Jeff's point, is set piece after set piece, and it just gets more exciting and fun and engaging. It's a great action adventure story. You know, it's so fun.
I think the pitch for international enforcement is: do you want to know what Nathan Hunt would be like if he was a mob enforcer?
Yeah, dude.
Buckle up.
It would be very fun. I do feel like I have to end our discussion on this by caveating it. If you are a young man watching this podcast, do not try to be like Salvatore Cotolino. That guy is a criminal. Your life will end poorly if you do that. But read it and enjoy it, because it's fun. I think Terrance and I talked about it. It's something we talk about all the time. These stories are here to give you the opportunity to go down an avenue that you should never go down in real life, right? Like there's something to that of, do not spend your late teens to early 40s being a mob enforcer. Don't do it. You're going to die. It's probably less of a life expectancy than the World War I pilots. We're not sure. So that's my final thing on there. Thank you guys for all the kind words. I really appreciate it. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Should we spend our 20s being confidence men then? What do you think, Terry?
Yes.
We probably for sure should.
Okay, actually, I am going to make a very hard stand on this. I think that more people would be benefited if they studied how to work well with other people. Yeah. Confidence men, for whatever their faults, know how to get along with anyone. And they're willing to do that because they want to get paid. Too many people sacrifice money for the sake of their own independent spirit and morality, when capitalism is telling us you should prize money more. Please pay attention to the asterisks and everything that I just said. The Midas Game is, I'm so excited. Much like Jeff with Lance, Jack Devlin as a character has been a part of my mythos for decades. And I'm so sad that I can now say the word decades in terms of my character creations. But I have been trying to write a Jack Devlin story for on and off for years, and it just never quite gelled. I first started working on it around the same time as, I think just before Thorn stalled out, and I was working on that. I was trying to make this work, and it just didn't quite click. Technology has advanced to the point where it helped come together, because the main like MacGuffin idea of the Midas Game is Jack Devlin is conning a man, and the pitch is that we have this advanced AI that is going to yield 650%, and this man is gullible enough to believe that it's true.
And greedy
enough. And greedy enough.
Yeah, dude, that's fantastic.
So well done. It's like a classy story. I don't know. Every time I read one of your stories, I just feel like I should be listening to jazz, in the background. I feel good. What was it then that helped you make it click? Was it the technology that kind of like was the thing for you, since this was decades in the making, or what kind of gave you that shift into, all right, this is good to go now, I made it?
So Jack, I think the actual first story that I have for him, I still want to write, but it's much more of a classic, like Thomas Crown Affair type story, where there's art theft, there's just Great Gatsby-esque parties, because that's really the thing that I love and want to write most in life. I don't want to attend a big party, but I love writing them.
Me too.
What clicked, I think, with this is in part the technology, and at the time, I was trying to write something that was much longer, whereas this is a nice tight around like 22,000 words, and that's just enough time to build up and cut out some extra subplots that I was trying to layer in the story that just distracted from it. Because inevitably what ended up happening was I'd had 3 or 4 stories running concurrently that I was trying to make all like run together like a Seinfeld episode at the end. That takes a lot of effort when it's not a 22-minute sitcom. Much harder when it's a 50,000 page project. The technology becoming more prevalent also helped, where like just within the past like 4 years, guys, AI went from being, oh yeah, AI exists, I wonder what it'll do, to you can just type in anything in ChatGPT and get responses, or Google or Meta.
Yeah, you'll get your response whether you ask for it or not on Google. Sometimes I'll be like,
Yes.
wait, what is that? Dude, I asked it something, just side tangent. I asked it something and it thought I was talking to it. It was like, oh, thank you for saying that. I was like, that's not what I'm not talking to you. I asked it, I was looking for like a movie quote or something. I was like, where does this movie come from? What movie is this from? But I digress. So, I don't want to cut off Nathanael. I already asked a question. Does anybody else have something before
I was just
jump back on Terrance?
I was just going to go on about how great this book is. I think the underlying concept of Jack Devlin being a fantastic storyteller is something that's really cool. And there for sure is moments, I think I said this which on our podcast, that it's like, are you Jack Devlin, Terrance? Like, are you the storyteller? Which to that point, I feel like I would always have a very hard time writing a con man story, because once I get far enough into it, I would just be like, man, does this actually work? Do I need to go find this guy and try it out? So props to you for publishing it instead of trying to start the life of crime. But I also think that that's really interesting what you said, the idea of, even in the asterisk, but also in the reality of like getting to being able to, I think that at this point in time, it's seen as manipulative or some way that you're trying to use people to your advantage, but being able to talk with someone whose like favorite thing to talk about is tractors, and someone whose favorite thing to talk about is like football, and someone's favorite thing to talk about is like high speed stock market stuff. If you're able to blend in with all of those people, you will grow as a person, and you'll have a lot more things that benefit you. So I think that there is for sure something to the con man ethos. I don't know how much you want to get in there before it becomes a bad thing, but yeah, fantastically well told story. It's super cool. And to know that you have the book of the con are written out like an actual, the way that cons work is super cool to me. It's impressive stuff.
I will say one of my favorite things in the book, because I'm a gym rat. I don't look like one, but I am. Just the fact that he gets to, he cons bodybuilders at the beginning of the story makes me so happy, because then it plays so well throughout the rest of the story. And honestly, now I'm thinking of more stories that I can do because of the way it ends. I'm like, he is a storyteller. Wouldn't he want to write a sequel?
Yeah, dude.
Dude, the thing, him as a character lends itself to, like, you could make a lot of these, I feel like, and I want to see that. And my question originally is, with the research, like, what did that look like for you? Because it's not like, I feel like if I just went in and attempted a con man story, it'd be so ham-fisted and so kind of like, I don't know, like you would be like, this is the worst con man of all time. What is it? Yeah, you just see this guy, it's the worst. So this was very subtle and kind of like people, like it was very Dale Carnegie, like people skills just baked into it. It was very, very well done, and in a subtle way. So what did that take from you to get that on the page?
I've had con books for years. I've been reading them for years. I know that the plot beats of a con game can mirror the plot beats of a story. And that's part of why I decided to interweave that Jack Devlin is a playwright and he aspires to be a master storyteller, because they do mirror each other. There are elements where you have twists and reveals. And for the hardest thing, this is the big thing that I think helped me with this. I don't know how it will play in future stories. Confidence men are in command of virtually every situation, just because of the sheer degree of competence they're in. Just because they can adapt to every situation, anything that's thrown at them, they adapt to. So it's really hard to make the stakes work, because you have to believe that this person who is effortlessly capable is going to get thrown off their game. So you either need to keep making the stakes higher, or you need to do something to take them out the knees. I think the thing that I liked about the story, and the thing that helped, was really establishing that Jack Devlin as a character, his last job didn't go well. So he shows up with hat in hand, because guess what? If you've already proven you might not be the best guy in the world, then people are not going to trust you as much. And when you're a con man, you need everyone to trust you, including the people that you're working with.
I thought that was really smart too, because with those guys, you think, it's often they have like that unshakable confidence, and knowing that and you putting that in the character, that like that is in the back of the psyche somewhere, like this, you know what I mean? Like there's so much pressure and like this could go wrong, and it really enriches that kind of character. Because when it's too much like, I'm definitely going to pull this off, like you said, the stakes lower, you don't feel that tension. And so that was definitely a very smart move on your part. Nicely done. Because it's an easy character to... Oh, go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say, one of my favorite parts is there is a character named Agent Hummel. So if people want to read the Midas Game just for that alone, they should.
Yeah, thank you. I was debating after reading that if I should find some way to shoehorn in a Layhew somewhere, but I didn't do it, so I apologize. Thank you, though.
That's okay. That's okay.
There's plenty of Veritas duels to come. You will have your chance to make the Layhew story. Don't you worry.
Yeah, Terrance, let me tell you what the Midas Game reminds me very strongly of, which is Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yes.
The opening of this book is the opening of Raiders. It's amazing. It's like you meet this guy, and he's doing this thing, which is a very small-scale thing compared to what he's going to do later. You're introduced to the character, you see his skills, you see what he's good at, you see what he's maybe not good at, and it's like you learn so much about him just in this opening, this small, like, cold opening almost. But then it's not a cold opening because characters in that cold opening show up later and have major roles in the story. And your commitment in this book to character and story is really impressive because, like, there's another character. You achieve something that I've always said, literary fiction needs to do, which is the characters need to feel like real people. Not characters in a book. They need to feel like people I've met. I need to know this guy. I need to say, I've met this guy. I've shook his hand. I know him. And there's a character, without giving any spoilers, that shows up a little later on, not Jack Devlin, who... he gets annoyed when people aren't at work on time because he's like, one guy. Let me tell you something, Terrance. Hold on. At first I read this and I was like, oh yeah, because let me tell you boys something. I'm an on-time guy. I hate being late. I was having trouble with my mic earlier, and so I was late to this and I was pissed off. I'm the guy that will sit out in his car for 20 minutes before I'm 5 minutes late. I would rather do that than be 5 minutes late anytime. Hate being late. So at first I was like, oh, I know this guy because this guy's literally me. Like, I get it. But then later, this guy throws this other guy under the bus and like doesn't take responsibility for something, and then he's late to stuff and doesn't get upset with himself at that. He gets upset at other people, but not himself. And I was like, oh, he's that guy. And I know that guy too. And I'm not that guy, to be clear. I get very upset when I'm late, not just when other people are late. But it's just like, oh man, I knew that guy. I thought I knew that guy, and then I realized I do know that guy, but he's a different guy than I thought he was. And it's well done. Like, I know guys like Jack Devlin. I used to work in addiction treatment, and the thing about addicts is they're very manipulative. And I've met guys who were like handsome and knew how to hit you with the smile and knew how to manipulate and get what they want. And you can tell that's what they've been doing for a long time. So I've met guys like that, and I've met guys like the guy I was just talking about, the late guy. Like, all your characters in this book really feel like real people that I know. And I just want to give my hats off to you and say that's impressive. I feel like in my own stories, I'm often more so dealing with archetypes and trying to be like, how do I make this guy real is something I kind of struggle with. I have to say, I thought you did a fantastic job. And again, the opening, just like Raiders, it's really well done storytelling. And I thought it was fantastic.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Something that I was very conscious of in writing this is you have to make the mark someone that you feel bad that they're getting fleeced, but also you're like, oh no, I want to see this jackass get it.
Right. Yeah, you can't make them too lovable, and then it's like you're rooting against the hero. So good on you for that.
Yeah, dude, you masterfully handled that. It's tough too, because like there's times where you're for sure like, gosh, I feel so bad for this guy. And then next thing you know, he does something like, oh, he deserves it. He completely deserves it. Like you had the perfect 1-2 punch of as soon as you started feeling like, I can't believe Jack's going to do it to him. You'd hit us with yeah, Jack, kill this guy. Don't just take his money. Kill him after this. Make sure he goes to jail or something. He's so annoying. So well done. Props to you for that for sure.
Thank you.
Reminded me of, even though they're not the same at all as far as like tone or story or anything, but Pain and Gain, the mark in that, if anyone's seen that, it's like same thing where you're like, oh, I feel bad, they should stop, and then he'll do something and you're like, oh, this guy is a douche as well. This guy sucks. Yeah, like this guy's karma. This guy sucks. But really well done. That is, I mean, yeah, there's a lot to think about that you don't think about. I've never thought about writing a con man story, so it's like these things I never put into thought, but those are very important points. If you mess one of these up in the balance, like the story's just not going to hit as well. And so you are doing a lot of really good work to put all this together, to spin the plates so that it works in a way that's entertaining and engaging and fulfilling to the audience, because you tip that in one direction and they're like, oh, this guy sucks, and then I don't want to root for him. Like there's a lot that could go wrong. So really nicely done. And yeah, to Jeff's point about the characters, it's another pitch to read Thorn. I think it becomes increasingly difficult for me to write realer feeling characters the further I go back in time. And you don't have that struggle, it seems, because your characters are just as real in Thorn as they are in this, which is awesome. So I really like seeing alive, vibrant, real characters in Thorn, because I would struggle at something like that. So I loved seeing that.
Thank you. I enjoy writing the various casts that I've gotten to, just because they're fun iterations of real people. To Jeff's point, I genuinely was trying to come up with, okay, how do I make this someone that isn't just a page? This isn't someone that just supports the plot. Like the two bodybuilders, just for example, at the beginning of the story, how do I write two meatheads that are meatheads, but like they actually seem like real people? My favorite line in the entire book is when the guy's like, my name is Les Morgan, so my Instagram handle is less is more gains. It made me so happy. That was my highlight of the book.
It's so good. If that doesn't sell it, we should make that the whole thing on Amazon is just that line and no description.
More gains.
Buy the book. That is the selling point. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
This was fun, guys. I'm glad that everyone did this. This was super cool.
And
thank you guys for putting this together.
What's even cooler though is not too long from now, you can come live in person in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I guess it's technically Mars, PA, at the Pulp Fest showroom floor. We will be there talking. We'll have these books on display. We'll have all the other stuff. Maybe there'll be some new stuff. You never know. We'll have the top 4 from Men's Adventure Fiction May. It'll be so much fun. We'll be having a absolute blast, and you can have deep conversations just like this for hours and hours. There will be no end to the conversation. So I can't say how excited I am just to, first of all, meet you guys in person. Second of all, just get to be there. I think this Pulp Fest is looking like it's going to be a really, really big one. So I'm very excited.
We'll also be showing some films at that Pulp Fest too, so you can come see Nathanael on the big screen and then talk to Nathanael in real life. Take a picture of him so you have Nathanael on the small screen. Get enough Nathanaels on the screens that you could ever want if you come to Pulp Fest. It'd be a good time. I'm excited. Like you said, for all of us to be there in the flesh with these books, that's going to be so good. And I'm trying to really soak it up. I don't want to wish it away too fast, but I want to be there.
Right. I'm in the same
so
spot.
Fun.
The sun never sets on the Veritas edition of Pulp Fest.
Yes, dude. But yeah, thank you guys so much for jumping on. Thanks for writing 3 really awesome stories. I enjoyed mine too. So 4 great stories that you guys get to read. They came out yesterday at time of this going live. So pick them up, check them out. Let us know which one you read first. Let us know the whole thing. It's super cool to have the double format back. So yeah, check out the Veritas Duels, and we'll link these guys, their social media and everything down below where you can find them. But yeah, I think that's it from me. Hold on, stop the presses. We have a very special announcement. This is the 4th place winner of Men's Adventure Fiction May. First time ever being announced on the podcast, and his book comes out next Tuesday. And the winner is...
It'd be Aaron Cummins with Perdido Valley War, winning a crisp $50 and the fourth place spot on Men's Adventure Fiction May, too. This is exciting. Check this book out. We absolutely loved it. Great job.
Yeah, we're super excited. We had so many submissions. So this is an incredible accomplishment, man. Congratulations. The Perdido Valley War is fantastic. You guys are going to love it. Can't wait to check it out. Back to our regularly scheduled programming.
Yeah, Terrance, do you want to start? If there's anything you want to leave them with, anything you want to link them to?
Hey, people, first of all, check out all of these books. They're all amazing. They're all incredible. If you want to hear my silky, dulcet voice tones more often, subscribe to Suit Up with Terrance Layhew, available on all major podcast platforms. You can also follow me on Instagram at suitup.author. There, I post lots of things related to books, including an ongoing series on the language of adventure, trying to come up with how do we describe these tropes and have conversations about these topics. And last but not least, I also occasionally post funny stuff. So follow me for that.
Heck yeah.
For sure.
Jeff, anything you want to leave them with?
Yeah, I guess I'll just leave with the thing I always say to people when I show up on these podcasts, which is if you are a writer out there, whether you're a young writer, an old writer, middle-aged, whatever, if you're someone that's been thinking about getting into writing but has never really found the time to do it or kept putting it aside, can't encourage you enough, man. Get out there and do it. The Veritas team are great to work with. Very, very good stuff coming out right now from tons of different writers. And, we want you to be a part of the team. We want you to come on board. I'm that guy that put aside his writing dreams for a very, very long time and knew that he wanted to get published and just never really did it. Like I said, there's probably half a dozen attempts at Lance Colburn that are sitting in my drive that are just abandoned over the years. And now Lance Colburn is coming to you and is going to be on the page and is going to be a real character. So that could be you. So if you're someone that wants to write, start writing, man. Just get it done and, contact us at Veritas and, see if we can get it done.
Yeah, great message. That was awesome. Yeah, fantastic. Absolutely. Don't keep those stories to yourself. The world needs them. I need them. All right, guys. Cool. Thank you so much. We'll see you in the next one.
We'll see you next time.
Gentlemen.